Yo, what's up, guys? This is Redfield, and today I'm going to be taking you through my remix of Kenya Grace's Strangers. Now, this one took forever to do because I stupidly decided to try and play basically everything in apart from the guitars, and I will go through everything right now. I realise I never actually play all the way through the tracks, so first things first, let's dive straight in. So yeah, this took forever to do. It took me over a month, and I went through at least, I think, 5 versions, because this is version 4 and I did a version of it and I wasn't happy with it. So this was the final version I went with. And as I said, it took a long time for me to do because I played everything in. And first of all, it was kind of fun because I was just like, I really wanted to just jam out over the vocal. I had like this drum loop that I made, and then I jammed out this organ pattern over the top, which sounds like this. And that's a contact instrument, so the Scarbier 200. It's got this really nice sound. I thought it sounded super cool. And then I was just jamming out with that, and the thing that kind of took forever was then the bass line. So what we'll do is we'll start from the top with the drums and work our way down the session as per usual. So this one, I layered 2 kick drums together. So let's solo the kick. So you got your main kick here, providing most of the frequencies, and then I added this mid kick to add a bit more realistic sound to the kick drum. So I've used this disco house bass drum, just providing more thud, and then together the two sound like this. And with the processing on, 500 hertz scooped, and then a lot of EQing. I think I found there was way too much high frequency information going on this one, so that's why there's loads of tweaks. I just wanted to get this kick really right and really warm, and I think that's one of the things that took the longest. I found that there was issues in the high end, and I couldn't for the life of me figure out where it was until I just took a week off of it and realized it was in the kick drum. A lot of the problems were, so I should have just replaced the sample, but I was pretty stubborn and wanted to keep this, and that's another reason why it took so long. Some parallel compression, and then I've just limited it, just making sure, again, as per usual, I usually try and make sure it hits around minus 10 dB. So we're already like, what, minus 10, minus 12, basically bang on. Okay, sorry, Shaper Box is just taming the ends of the kick. So that's with it on, and with it off, a lot more ring to it, ringing out, kind of like just not necessary in this genre. The tops, okay, so we've got a clap group because there's heaps going on. So some saturation and 2 amounts of EQ, just taming. Oh, you can't see that one. Just taming even more high, and I think I just found there was a lot of harsh frequencies in this track, and I was just trying to figure out where it was. Snare, using the SP950 to kind of make it sound a little bit more old school. It gets rid of, again, high frequency, so this is what it sounds like without, and then with. Just really kind of kills it. It does add some low end, but apparently I didn't get rid of it. Oh well. More claps, and this just adds life to it. Saturation. And then you've got this wide clap here, which comes every 2 bars on the final crotchet, which sounds like this. A long bleed to that reverb. So I've tamed it here, and I've also transposed it down to semitones, so it sounds a bit grittier. And again, I've just tamed some of those highs and some more harsh frequencies around 8,000 and 5,000 hertz there. Okay, so that's the claps, and then they're grouped together, and I've got some processing going on there. Taming some of those harsh frequencies here. Saturation, a compressor, more EQ, more taming, and then sausage fattener, just to give it a tiny bit of beef. You'll see those in play. So you can hear the extra accent clap there. So it's on 1%, and it's doing quite a lot of compression actually, but yeah, sounds fat. Now to the tops. Open hi-hat. Just getting rid of some of this. High frequencies again. Tamed the levels just so it's not too loud to begin with. And even more frequency reduction. This was ringing so much. And then there's a ride for the final drop. Just adding length to the offbeat. Just a conga. And I've tamed some of the transients, so let's say 34. So in full, it sounds like this. way too much. So if we put it back, and if we remove I've got a send reverb on it. Super dead, and I know I changed this several times. I just kept adding more and more because I really wanted that life to come in, and the way that I kind of was listening to that is like straight from the get-go. I just wanted it to have more room. That's without too dead in my opinion. So I then I kept adding more and more. This shaker, I know I did a lot of EQing on this. And then have some accents here for the snare drum, a little fill. Multi-band compression, EQing, and then the triangle, just to add some final lift, some percussion to the end bit. Again, I've really kind of cut in on this one, so without way too much. So we put that back. So with the ghost notes on the snare drum, I've started to put in loops that I've found that have got quite nice ghost notes already existing, because then they're going to change naturally with a live playing drummer. So this one I thought sounded wicked, so I then found where all the ghost notes were sitting in the loop and just added them in myself and changed some of the velocities around, so that way you're not getting the whole loop, you're just getting the drum that you want. You see how there's a variation in pitch, in volume. So it just adds that liveness. So if we just listen to the tops as a whole. Just has this really nice groove to it. And then everything all together. So you've got my usual favorite compressor there for parallel compression. Limiter, the saturator for the mid sides, bringing out the sides there. EQ, a little bit of multi-band compression, a tiny amount of parallel compression again. Felt like there was a harsh frequency, so let's see what that sounds with it. Just getting rid of that horrible sound there. I've created this build-up that I use all the time. It's kind of like an equivalent of the Endless Smile. Just it does what I want it to do, and I use it on a lot of things just as a quickly like throwaway for the builds, and you can hear that. So after all of that cutting of the harsh frequencies, it then lost a lot. So I needed to boost it about 5,000 hertz by 5 dB. So it's a lot. So I don't know which came first, the fact that I was getting rid of all these frequencies, or I shot myself in the foot and boosted it all the way up to the top and then spent the rest of the month cleaning that up. But then I also got Soothe here to kind of catch those frequencies again, just to triple check that it's not too harsh. And these are the frequencies it's bringing down. So that's the drums. Then the bass. This took forever. It's so annoying. Why did I decide to try and experiment with a new plugin and try and get a realistic bass sound? Why not just find a sample? So I bought Icon Bass, and I love it. I think it sounds great. It sounds super realistic. Love the tones that you can get out of it. But it just took me so long to program the velocity. I played in the notes to begin with, and then I was happy with how that sounded. And then to get the realisticness of it, because I'm quite heavy-handed and just trying to get that groove, I spent forever trying to get this bass sound right, and it was a lot of playing with velocity, shortening the notes. As you can see, the offbeats are, if you're thinking of like when you're like playing a slap bass, you're plucking the higher strings, so it snaps a lot. And to get that shortness, I mean, it's so short, and you can see that it's not perfect when I played it in, and I didn't want to quantize it too much. But yeah, it took forever to get this right, and again, this whole process of this track was just, it became a bit of a like, I've got to get this out because I'm just never going to let it go. So this is the bass without the plugins on. And then bringing in everything one by one, you've got the saturator that I love, the decapitator. So it's with, without, just a bit fatter. A fair amount of compression, but I've also reduced the trim so it's not too loud. The channel strip, I think this just sounds awesome. It adds this nice kind of analog-y kind of tone to it. I guess I just cheated and just used the bass setting. Another saturator, Saturn. We really wanted to warm up this frequency range here between 50, 60 hertz and 500. So really kind of pushes that range. I think it sounds really nice. And then another Saturn. Adding a fair amount of gain. Then an EQ. The reason why I've used these this amount of slope is because I really wanted to get a specific area that I felt that it was missing. So the way you do that, if you don't know, is you go to stereo slope placement, and then you can just change the angle of the cue. And then RC20. This was a thing that I added quite last minute. I wanted it to sound more realistic, as I said before, but I felt like it was missing some kind of cabinet warmth that you would get from playing through a bass amp. And when you have it on full, it sounds too much. It sounds like this. What are we on? Obviously not right. But when you dial it in to how I had it, 10%, I think it just... That's without it. Just adds a kind of bit of sheen to it. So if I turn them all on and off, this is what it sounds like. The only thing that bass instruments don't have is the ability to get like a good slide in. I think I haven't found one, so I've used a bass slide somewhere. Oh yeah, before the second drop, and I've just used Oliver's bass slide. I've started doing that in so many things. It just makes things easier. Okay, moving on. The guitar. I spent a while trying to find the right kind of chic kind of guitar sound, Nile Rodgers vibe. I like this one. I didn't use it in complex pro mode, which I would usually use for melodic instruments like pianos, guitars, blah, 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 or samples, you know, like if I'm using record samples and stuff like that. Because I really wanted this to be a lot more percussive, and to be able to drag in those transient sustains, I needed it to be in beat mode and change it from fully released full sustain to quite tight. So if I had it on Complex Pro, it'd be like this. With it in transient mode, it's a lot more staccato, quite static sounding. I know I've added room back again, but that was just so I could kind of have all the drums and all the instruments in the same room. Yeah, and also because I wanted to change the key of the chord signatures in the track. This kind of translated quite well from going from the root note to 5 semitones above. In this section, I just go from one to another. I mean, when you're listening to it on its own, it does sound a little bit grating, but in the essence of the track, when you're listening through it all together, it's just, you wouldn't know. I've got this kind of riff that's kind of running in the background all the way through to add like this ambience to it. And I played that in on the DX7 in, I think it's Artura. And again, I wanted it to be more percussive than melodic. I did want it to obviously fit in with the key and sound good, but just dragged in those transients to tighten it up again. Then, just a sound effect to add like ear candy. Just some sound effect to add some width and movement. Some squeechy synth. And these are just ear candy sounds. They're not like, they don't really matter that much, but they add a lot to it to kind of keep your ear interested in the track. Otherwise, it just gets so dull for the whole time. Just the same thing over and over again. Got Shaper Box doing a whole bunch of stuff. This is a preset complex stereo. I think I was just shifting through things quickly to kind of have another thing that was moving the track along. And you can see I'm bringing it out before the actual second drop, because if you don't want everything building and getting louder the whole time, you need to remove elements to have some kind of impact for the second drop. Okay, so you got the string sections that I played in. So this is with Contact. Just wanted to have like a realistic string section in here. I've got the RC20 just taming to make it sound a little less bright again, and a vintage plate reverb that I love to use to make it sound more realistic, so that's with it on. See how the plate just makes it bigger. The thing that I found with this is, even though I had the RC20 on it and I liked the sound of it, it still didn't sound that realistic. As much as I liked it to, I really wanted to try and get it as real as possible. I tried to recreate that I played in with the samples from the disco string pack, the thing that's everywhere, which is the that's in so many tracks. So I just copied that in, and then adding that with the layer that I made. It sounds so much better, and to the point that I brought the original one back in the mix, which is a lot quieter. It's kind of filling that mid-range, center in the mix rather than the sides. Then adding the others just sounds so thick. It was just getting that held note wasn't quite right. Because if I drag out this sample, which I've put together, or sliced up, sorry, this is the original sound that I sliced. So don't know what happened there. So that's obviously not how I wanted it to sound. So I had to loop different bits and pieces to get this dragged out sound. And there's a big tail just to let it fade out naturally, which you obviously can't do with the sample unless you were to like automate the reverb all the way up. Oh yeah, processing on the group. There's a channel strip, some sidechain, some EQ. Again, taming the harsh, the dynamic EQ on the tops this time, rather than just a cut. And soothe, just to get rid of some stuff. It's actually a mic string setting, which was good. The sidechain's pretty aggressive, but you can't really notice that when everything's going. And I really wanted the kick to kind of like smash out of the park on this one. The organ, so that sounds like this. I love playing it in. I had so much fun with this. I jammed out for far too long playing that in. And then with all the bits and pieces, you've got the CLA, Decapitator, Valhalla. I think that was just an effect, for transitions. As is, there's a little bit of flanger going on. Okay, so it's more about control on the group setting. We've got track spacer to sidechain from the vocal, so that way when the vocal's coming through, it's ducking down. Sidechain in general for the kick drum. Some frequency control. some more EQ. I felt like it was missing some body, so this was what it would have sounded like without. Just this kind of area was missing, I think. The effects, there's the usual effects I use. I've got a crash, a reverse crash, a white noise riser, a vinyl layer that's running throughout, and then a splash. I've gone through those every time, so I won't bother going on with this. So I think the most interesting bit in the vocal is the effect that's running from the build up towards the second drop. So what I did was I attached an LFO onto the left and right time in free mode, and then also had the generic endless smile to then add even more intensity to the build up, and that sounds like this. What I also wanted to do was to make sure that it wasn't too intense in the stereo width. So down here, I also reduced the stereo width to 33%. When I actually was making this, I actually had it set to dead zero, but I just felt like that was too much, to be honest. So you can see what happens here. I'll just skip to the right to the end. Another tip you can see over there in the corner is that I automate quite often the gain before the drops. So in the build up, because everything's getting a lot louder with the intensity, I'll drop it down maximum 150, maybe 2. Most of the time it's usually a decibel. I know some producers take it down to like -2 just so it hits even harder, but I just feel like it gets too quiet and loses some of the energy in the build. So that's basically the vocal usage, really. When I'd finished the first drop, I then was obviously moved on to the second half of the track, and I wanted to listen through to the second verse, and I found the vocal line. I thought it was just awesome. What did you ever mean? What did you ever mean? How can I say that this is love? And what's interesting is that listening to it soloed, you can really hear the degradation in the vocal from having slowed it down so much. But actually, when I was writing, I felt it really suited like 125, even though it's drum and bass speed, which is like 174. Yeah, I just thought that bit was really sick as like a final bit. I actually, when I'd written it, had that again, so it was even longer, but then when I was playing it out, it felt like it kind of dragged, so I snipped off 8 bars at the end. And yeah, that's the track. Here is something I do quite a lot on vocals, especially I use like a vocal throw. I don't know if I've gone through that before. It's where I basically, instead of having a really heavy delay, I've got a delay on here already, so I haven't really gone through that. You've got Arvox, my Echo Boy, which is it's just like a tape echo, very short one, and then this one's I think Crotchets, and then a reverb. I've gone through this so many times before in the other ones. It's worth checking out. It's basically like a dry wet send aux return internally to the track. Check out the other videos just so I'm not going through the same again. I've got compression going against the vocal, an inflator for saturation, EQ 8, multi-band compression. I've got that moving thing we spoke about earlier. Some width, adding a bit of width to it. Sidechain compression, harsh frequencies. Because I ripped this off the track, it sounds a bit buggered. I think that was another thing that I was struggling to fix in these harsher frequencies. I definitely know that every time I muted the vocal, because I didn't have the legit acapella, I noticed that it was super clean straight away. So that was frustrating, but I was just like, I'm not going to waste, doing this track. So that was me taming a zillion frequencies in that area as well. And again, trying to catch them in Soothe. What I was saying before I jumped back into this was that so I don't have too long delays, I have these delay throws. So that's where I'll just grab the word or the phrase that I want to be delayed. Well, in this case, I'm guessing it's by it's a minim, so half a beat, sorry. And so that's delaying all the way through. So it's solo the vocal. So that's just running. Yeah, so that's just so I can have that word really dragged out, and I just thought it was an awesome thing. And yeah, that's basically everything. I've got track spacer on the music group as a whole. So that big section at the top there, that's all the instrumentation, nothing to do with the vocals. And what I do is sometimes, just to get that vocal to pop through a little bit more, I'll sidechain these frequencies, the mid frequencies, or where I feel like the vocal is the strongest, just a little bit against the vocal, so it sounds like this. So you can see that I'm just dropping that frequency, the area, by a little bit, just so it cuts through the vocals a bit more. And I know I've got that already going on in the organs, but I just felt like it needed a little bit more. So yeah, that's the track. And what I've started to do with the mastering side of things, and this is where I spend a lot of time, is I'll write the track to 90% done, but I have like a whole bunch of reference tracks that I love and that I play out every week, and they're like my favorite tunes, and I know which ones it kind of sounds the way I want it to go in the final bit. And plugins that I cannot live without now, because of I work, as you can see, in a bedroom. This is my spare room where my studio is, and I'll do a little video on my gear that I use on Instagram after I finish filming this. Is I use Bassroom by mastering the mix. It's become such a necessity to me in my mixing, because of I don't have a treated room. I've got this dodgy nailed to the wall sound stuff, which I don't think is doing anything. I've moved my room around a bit as well, so I used to be further over there, so it was a bit more damp, but now I've got nothing behind me. And I have a sub pack and a set of headphones, which is like this. They're pretty pricey, but they're so valuable to me. So with that combined with Bassroom and Reference, these are I found that my mixes have gotten a lot better. And what I've done is I've imported some of my favorite tracks. So two of them being, which is Grant Nelson's "It's Not Right" and Moose T's Cola remix. And I've just listened to, I see how my one goes up against their ones, and it tells you what the variation is between. So what I'm doing is I'm just clicking on the references, and it's showing you the frequency difference, and then you can go through and fix those. And honestly, I think I kind of gave myself a bit more of a battle, because of It's Not Right is a lot more live, and it's a lot more disco house than house. And I wanted to go slightly down the more houseier energy, even though it's disco-y, so I don't know if that makes sense. The Moose T Cola remix is very similar to like how I wanted it to sound in the end. Once I'd finished writing, I was like, okay, it's got this incredible bass line. So I love the energy from that, so I definitely was aiming for that style. And as you probably saw, I used Ozone 11, the latest Ozone, because of it was just really useful to me. Like, what I did was I set it off for its master assist mode, and it was obviously way off. It got it super loud and wrong, in my opinion. But then once I then switched it over to, see, I've got Cola there, and a whole bunch of other tracks that I really like for this style that I'm making. I then set it to that, and then rethought about it, and then it was like, okay, this is what you actually want to do. And combining all these AI plugins together, I felt like I've gotten a much better mix than what I had before. And people might be against that, but I've been producing for so long, and I've been DJing for so many years. I definitely know that my hearing is buggered in my left side, hands down. and so I definitely don't trust them when it comes to the high end stuff. And combining this stuff with the headphones and the sub pack, I feel like my mixing's gotten heaps better. So it's expensive, but for me, who I feel like I don't hear what I should be hearing, it's been super helpful. So Ozone's super great, especially if you're using references. Reference and Bassroom, the mastering the mix plugins are sick. I'm not paid to say that, but I couldn't recommend them any more to people. I hope I haven't missed anything, because I feel like every time I've done one of these, I've missed stuff. I know this is a lot longer than normal. But yeah, I hope you've learned something, and I'm really excited for the next couple that are coming out. These have been streaming really well. So yeah, hope you've enjoyed it, and I will see you very soon. Catch you in a bit.